While we normally may think of soybean production to occur in the eastern third of Nebraska, as explained to the November Nebraska farmer, the crop is also gaining a place in the state's Panhandle. The magazine explained how good yields under no-till irrigated situations were proving to be a benefit. We recently talked with UNL Extension engineer Paul Jasa to see how soybeans are spreading farther west in the state.
Well, the soybeans are sort of a new crop in Nebraska. In fact, when I was a youngster, we didn't have soybeans too much here in Nebraska. But they've been slowly moving in from the east, and as it moves further west, we start running into a few challenges. But the southwest Nebraska, the lower elevations, and a little bit up in the Panhandle, even higher elevations, we're seeing soybeans creep out that way now.
What are the challenges in water needs as you move farther west with soybeans?
Well, soybeans is a summer annual crop, very similar to corn when it comes to total water use. A rough number is about 25 inches of water for what we call evapotranspiration for full crop water use. Now that includes evaporation from the soil surface as well as from any wet surface, but it also is the transpiration that goes through the crop. And we start thinking about 25 inches of water. While eastern Nebraska, we get that much rain. We got a lot of soybeans grown without irrigation. Further west we go, we pick up some irrigation. But as we go out further west yet, we got less water available, so we almost have to have irrigation, or, as I'm a fan of, no-till.
Yeah, how has no-till been a benefit out there?
Well, no-till, we protect that soil surface with residue, and we don't till the soil. By leaving the residue on the soil surface, we keep the sun and wind off the soil surface, we reduce the evaporation, and if we got less coming out of the soil itself, we got more left in the soil to go through the crop. And there's a lot of research out there showing that that residue in no-till can reduce evaporation around 3 inches. Total no-till system, we save about 5 inches of water. Well, that water savings then can go to yield for our soybeans.
Mm-hmm. As you know, if you've traveled out there and then come back during the summer, there's far less humidity out in the Panhandle in that climate. Is that a problem at all when you get towards harvest?
Well, yes, that low humidity, those beans dry out fast, and that's where we need the water to grow the crop, but we also need that water there just to get that pod to hold together. The soybeans are grown inside the pods. Those pods, as they're drying down, we want the beans to dry down too so we can get harvested. But as those pods really get dry, they start popping open. You be out there on a late August, early September day, and that wind starts blowing and it's low humidity, and you can just almost hear them popping there and beans hitting the ground.
What's the remedy for that? Is there one?
A little bit on checking the maturity of your beans, then really watch when they're harvestable. I'm going to go out there and take them along a little bit on the wet side. It turns out the market dock on wet beans is less than the harvest losses and less than the market dock of not selling the water you're entitled to sell when you're harvesting over-dry beans.
Now, how hard is it to find an elevator or a co-op or someplace that will take these beans, since it is a new concept out there?
It is relatively new, and a lot of people say, well, I don't have any place to sell it. People have to look around a little bit. I'm not going to just drive 5 miles down the road to the local elevator. Out there, you got to go a lot further anyway. But it's true. We got to start working with some of our elevators, cooperatives, and so on to see if we can get the beans sold.
What are we looking at in terms of yields out there, and is that something that could be increased?
Well, the yields, again, a little bit has to do with variety selection, what we're going to grow out there. But there's some irrigators out there who are raising some surprisingly good yields. I say surprisingly good for that area. They're raising some 50, 60 bushel beans into irrigation. And one reason it is so good is they just don't have the disease problems yet, or insect problems that we have back east here. That low humidity, it may be a disadvantage for the drying out of the beans, but it's an advantage because the diseases usually need moisture to live. And so again, you get some nice yields out there.
And we'll see what happens if the insects start to travel out west and try and find those beans or not.
That's true. It doesn't take too long for Mother Nature to figure it out.
Now, there is dry bean production in the Panhandle. And if you're using the same machine, how important is it that you would essentially clean out the machine entirely before switching to a different crop?
Well, dry beans out in Panhandle, that's all food grade, and that's basically its identity preserved. You can't have any contamination at all in the foods. And so we're going to make sure those combines are clean. Soybeans themselves are not in the human food chain, so we're going to make sure we clean all that out. We don't want any cross-contamination. Spend a little bit of time on the combine, the trucks, augers, everything that touches those beans.